You looking for Ed DeMarco? Yes, sir. Sure. I refinished this table last night, and when I thought it'd be dry, and then I got my hands black, so I'm putting this skirt around it so we don't all get wet. I'll grab some hand sanitizer so we can pass goods back and forth. Grabbing a pen. be shy, you're walking up. I said you needn't be shy, you're walking. As long as you sit around, I like small talk. That happens to everyone. I normally go out and meet people. That's where you park. God, share some of that luck with me. Sir, I'm trying to properly social distance. Sir, was it Scott? Scott, I'm trying to properly social distance. I don't do too well with masks. Will that be okay if we're this far apart? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll lean back. Thank you, sir. That is always a very good possibility. Oh, and while you're going back there, I was going to show you something during our meeting, and so I'm just going to point to something as you're walking. I'll walk with you just for a second. I just wanted to, I have much better photos as we get up here real quick and take deeper. This will scare me from having to show you guys during the meeting. And we can also, let's see, someone's over there. And I don't see anyone over there. So I just wanted to, right now, I know this won't seem significant, but so my apartment's there. You see the black wires, my cable wires, right? And you see my neighbor's cable wires. Do you know anything else, please? There's the two wires running towards my apartment. But come here. Yeah, they run to my apartment. And let me show you what from afar what those things on my roof looks like. And that way, there, right there, black box. Really, this is the best place. But you see this? Well, there's three more up here. If you wear nice white shoes, but you should be able to see a series of black boxes up there. The middle one is, I think, it's either a microwave or satellite receiver that feeds the others. But that's my cable wire. I have high definition video runs all the way through that system, not to my apartment. So I just wanted to note that, and we'll get into that later. I know right now that's not as significant. And Sarah? All right. We're upstairs. Huh? We're upstairs. Oh, I tell people that is so much more than normal people.
I'm so sorry, yeah. Yeah, no, I got here at 1:45. Yeah. I got here at
I will keep the videos pointed at myself. Can you talk?
Actually not. Okay.
Well, here. There we go. Only I'll be videotaped.
No, we don't like to do you.
It's under California law, public officials and the exercise of their official duties may not refuse to be video recorded.
We can talk about it with our county council and come back in a different time. But I do not discuss the hunting of video.
Okay, so
I think we should do that.
all right. Well, here, if you're not going to proceed without the videotape, then right now point at me. I don't want to have the privilege of a witness. That's what I wanted them, but we can do maybe a shorter meeting. And this one is a dash cam. If you plug in, you'll see a power off.
I would actually look. Are you comfortable with the camera thing out here?
I mean, I just look. The thing is, I've had a lot of problems with the county. And yeah, and so that's what one of the air said, and I'm going to document. I was a victim of very serious crime because he said that and said nice things, but he didn't.
So here's the thing: is that we are here to help you, but we're not here to talk about what's wrong.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. But like I said, I am permitted to have a advocate. I've been isolated. I can document this very quickly and easily. And so the problem I have is, when I see two people coming, it's going to be two words against mine. And also, I'm in a really bad situation, and I have a number of complaints pending against the sheriff's department. I don't really feel safe. I just like to they don't let me upload anything to YouTube or anything. These are offline cameras with no Wi-Fi connection. They're just for my personal. I have no way to transmit them right now. And so I thought it would be my legal prerogative to just have. And I also, just so I hate repeating it, it's very dramatic. I hate repeating this, and the Sheriff's Department, maybe a lot of the problems came from my communications disorder, and so I feel like having my kind of a statement of a recent crime particularly, under the questioning of someone with year skill training rather than a law enforcement officer would be helpful. And
okay, here's the reason why we're here, President. We've seen this before. I've been self-modified.
My parents, both my parents called, and I've been calling for a year and a half since it started.
Okay. So what we're here today to do is to determine if you are being accused.
I think we can do that, sure.
We will not be videotaped or recorded. If that is an issue, then I'll have to go back to county council.
No, I mean it's been noted. But no, I'm desperate for help. It took me a long time to prepare for this, so the recording devices have been removed. And now, this is behind glass, but it wouldn't. You want me to go take that down?
I don't feel that you need to take it down.
Okay, it's behind glass, and it's a cheap, and also that, I swear on my life, does not record live. It only lets me check the security.
So the other things we're here today,
and it also doesn't capture right here.
Yeah. We're also not here, as Sarah mentioned, to talk about previous social workers, Javier, in particular. If you've got an issue with them, I think we've already directed you to his supervisor.
Yes, wonderful lady.
So I'm not going to...
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, with that said, then let's try to see what we can do.
Okay.
And I do want to keep it real, Dan. I know you've got some complaints, it sounds like, about sheriffs and what have you. I'm more potentially concerned, not necessarily with the allegations were neighbors.
What I would like to say, I'll be honest with you, because I understand that there was an attempt to get titles in Tri County Regional Center.
I have just last week officially finished my intake process after 3 months of.
Are you able to get the school or the medical records showing the disability back to childhood?
My mom is working with Tri-County. My mom was my pediatrician. Both my parents are medical doctors.
So did she tell you if they have the proper documentation? Because one of the things that we might be able to do as a child with them is a consent or release of information to speak with your psychiatrist with Ventura County Behavioral Health. Because that, depending on the information they have, it could...
I have a written diagnosis with right here with autism spectrum disorder.
So when was that dated? When
a month or two, a couple months ago.
So Tri-County has their own rules and regulations.
I've saved the whole 867 pages of the Information Act, everything, every publication that they put out, a number of YouTube webinars, etc. One thing with my autism I got is the ability to, have you guys seen the movie The Rain Man? Yeah, the ADS Savant syndrome. It used to be Asperger's. The DSM-5 did away with Asperger's, and so I'm now autism spectrum disorder. But I am very familiar with their policies. The only one thing that would be helpful on ground with Tri-County, although today, serious crimes to report. I know, and I do know, not about you guys, about there's a suspect with full name, but I know you guys do not do investigations of the penal code. However, listening to a lecture by your National Adult Protective Justice Association, I know you guys are county run. The Summer State run, Summer County run, your county run, but he was saying that often law enforcement will need to understand they need to enforce the welfare and institution codes, and that the sheriffs often are so focused on the penal code that they may not understand. And also, has the county made you aware that I had posted a video of Captain Bouchot on YouTube? Okay. Sorry about my anxiety. Yeah, but I requested ADA accommodations.
You requested that restoration for what?
For the purpose of trying to, I don't enjoy doing this stuff, but like many other agencies, I reviewed their policy manual in depth, and and they are required for their own policy manual and they're allowed to have at all times a shift ADA coordinator, quote unquote. The ADA coordinator, after Adult Protective was a no-show for 3 weeks when my dad called and reported it, and he said they transferred him right to an adult protective worker. The adult protective worker told him, quote unquote, this sounded very serious, and that they would be out within 10 days, which is the maximum permitted by law.
That is not something that a hotline can personally told you. That's not...
My dad may have spoken with the social worker, but that's...
Just so you understand, when we get a referral, it's up to the supervisors whether or not to determine.
Right.
And so we get a lot of phone calls where we have to really choose out if there's a protective issue. So just because someone calls a hotline, it does not mean...
I do understand that. I do understand the supervisor may document reasons why they have elected not to respond to the call or not respond in a timely manner.
Okay, so what is it that we can help you with today? What is it that you would like to do? social worker that shows up on time, so thank you for
I would like to articulate a recent crime. The sheriff has denied me services. Their ADA coordinator she identified as Rebecca Hillcrest. Said I requested from them somebody familiar with communication disorders, and that would understand like when I'm stuttering, or with my autism, like I will, like when I'm trying to explain something, I'll get excited and I'll realize I've been talking loud. So in the past, law enforcement has tried to take me to jail for shouting at them when I'm not like aggressive at all. I will realize when I lose social awareness, I can talk out. So I said, just to avoid any problems in the past. So that's the ADA request, and she said that she would and give her time, but time passed, I never heard from her, and Javier didn't show up until the day after I posted the video of the sheriff captain I filed a complaint with, berating me, denying my legal rights, etc. And then I have no recourse, I have no lawyer, obviously I've been isolated intensely, and I seem to also be the victim of a pattern of abuse by retaliation by the county. Since that episode, Javier showed up the morning after I sent out that video that I posted on YouTube to the county's top officials, pounding on my door, ringing the door. I thought he was a process server. He didn't leave any card, any identifying information, and he's a pretty big dude, right? And so I didn't know who he was. I assumed they were going to try to serve me with an injunction and take the video down. So I feel I cannot communicate my crime to law enforcement, and I know what is within your scope is that you do, you and I discussed cross-reporting and all that, that help alleviate the emotional distress, financial abuse, isolation, and neglect that comes from being a crime victim.
Okay. I can see Sarah helping in a couple ways, or APS. One, you have cross-reporting, but after that, we don't investigate. That's up to the law enforcement. Second, connect you with counseling resources, which is, tri-county stuff, behavioral health.
The behavioral health said they weren't able to assist me since I had a covered California plan, and I already have psychiatrists.
Okay, so Ventura County Behavioral Health has a self-referral line that you can call.
I did. I spoke with her.
Did you speak with Deacon? Specifically with Deacon as a program?
I don't think I spoke with Deacon. I asked about RISE, and they said I wouldn't qualify for it. I'm sorry, can I make you aware of the crime? I lay out these bits, your prerogative. This is, I have been these copies are for you if you'd like them.
Sure, that would be great, because we can...
Yeah.
But you want to just go through with me what they are?
Yes.
Okay.
I do understand, from what's in the manual and the Welfare and Institution Code, the scope of your work, so I do understand what's on paper. And I want to note that this crime started March 6th of 2019. Well, what I'm going to have to do is you're going to need a little bit of context. It won't take...
No, I'm sure that I will. But for me, to take a look really quickly and see how much I can kind of do something.
They are in chronological order.
Okay, and who is this person that you're communicating with?
Technically is a quote-unquote downstream contractor, but he is the criminal that called me 3 days after this, what at first appears to be strictly cyber attack started on March 6th. With a opportunity for me and trying to get me to get my one last working device hacked out. I reached out to him because of who his dad is. His dad that living in Florida. Just when I left there mainly to get away from it. He's one of the predators that they are, but what sometimes you'll see is what looks like a repeat, but all I'm trying to show is the continuation.
Right, yeah, no, I see that, okay.
This occurred between the time my service plan is to be delivered and when I called Javier and said that there is no probability I was the victim of any type of criminal activity, so he did not report to law enforcement like I said in my service plan. Well, it started with several long video calls, so that's why I was going to articulate context. He's extorting me to wipe all my documentary footage, delete all my websites, delete all the evidence I gathered against the county, decline any further assistance from your agency or any other county agency so I'm being extorted under threat of that. And these guys have the capability to carry that out very well. I reached out to him how desperation was involved protected didn't help, and when the sheriff, another one is doing what it looks like my rights are what I'm entitled to.
Alright, so basically, again...
Here's the second thread. This is from my other phone.
Let me just make sure that
no, there's screenshots of my, that's from my iPhone. They retaliated, this is phone they retaliated against after I complained about, made a fuss with the county and Adult Protective Service. This is my main phone. It got knocked out. Out of retaliation, I also finally confronted the apartment complex about the attackers' equipment set up there.
I'm just a little confused and forgive me for that, but
yeah.
Who are the attackers?
My understanding from everything I've read and know about disability rights is I'm trying to articulate the context of those. But do you see in those that it looks like I am the victim of isolation, abuse, and neglect?
So here's the situation with isolation, because isolation does not fall under the self-neglect category, right? So what you said to me was that you were, and I'm not going to quote you exactly, but essentially what you said is you are isolating private underscore.
No. I'm sorry, you misunderstood me.
Okay.
You misunderstood me. What I was saying about self-neglect was that Javier should have provided resources and assistance regardless of whether I was the victim of self-neglect, although me and my family are quite convinced it is these criminals that are the ones doing it. That's who I was referring to. That if,
okay, so what isolation is really talking about, and talking quickly on this, is that another party, okay, so another party is physically restricting your ability to interact with others, whether it be a phone, whether it be by phone or email. So we really look at the isolation as a perpetrator knowingly and willingly preventing the client from speaking to anybody.
Like deleting all my email accounts. I was to delete my Facebook. I'm deleting them because I'm being extorted with a death threat.
That's the concern I'm seeing is that, you know, we do have the ability to commit self-neglect all the time, and we can certainly isolate as a result. But what we're really looking at when we talk about isolation is a clear perpetrator who is preventing you or anyone from contacting others or to be contacted. So there might be some confusion there. Because
there might be, but there might be disagreement about who's confused respectfully. Yes, no, isolation entails, and then what about abuse or neglect? Telling one to delete their websites, their footage, their attempt to launch their business. I've registered a business on Google, destroying my intellectual property, and making me misappropriate resources falls under financial abuse, like having to spend $52.65 just to print photos because I can't get a printer working for a year and a half.
Right, so you want to pick up one? You know, the way I'm reading with that again is that a lot of what we're talking about yesterday, today is a lot of other outside agencies and how they might be affecting you by their service or disservice. I don't know if in there we're really seeing a perpetrator. Now, that does not mean that I won't share this with law enforcement. It does not mean that I will not give you the referrals that you require. But I think that you need to understand on our end, and I am perfectly content sending all of this information to law enforcement. Done deal. I'm not worried about that. I just don't know, of course, what they're going to do with it. And that's always up to them.
But by your own policy, it is common for you to work hand in hand with them, and in a sense, that is to coordinate with them. Also, that criminal is in Florida. The criminals who have put the hardware, and I showed Javier a picture of
Right, so I'm going to stop you there for a second. So where the perpetrator lives, or the not the concern, ATS. Right. Often we don't know who it is. If it's a scam on the phone, we're not going to know who the perpetrator is. That's for law enforcement to tease out. Now, as far as our relationship with law enforcement, we do often rely, of course, on them for our safety, and they rely on us for their investigation. The initial part, not what they do with it after they receive it, but the initial referral that's made, that's pretty much where we end. Once we send out information to law enforcement, we have no...
You don't, and what about what is it, protective measures? Home safety or shelter?
So...
I do have a death threat.
In order to receive temporary, and when we say temporary, we mean temporary assistance through Adult Protective Services for housing, that's a specific request that needs to go to Supervisor Ventura as well, right? And the program manager. So there's such a criteria that needs to be met, and I don't know that you live. Normally, when we're looking at something like housing temporary, it's because someone needs to leave their home.
I do. No. Right here today, I can't say.
Okay. So it's either someone being evicted, okay, and needs a temporary place, someone's house who is, needs to have either a horse clean out or it's been tagged. So those are situations where we can provide very short-term temporary housing, maybe 2 to 3 days, but that's it. So the Ventura County Behavioral Health, they have housing. That's something.
No, they don't. No, they don't. They've referred me to outside agencies. Behavioral health does not have housing. They have inpatient or like transitional living.
Our partners don't practice in living communities that are directly connected to Ventura County Behavioral Health. Now, how you become eligible for that program, that I don't know. That was something, again, you'd have to talk to behavioral health. Tri-Counties also, could potentially have some,
No, they do. They do have great housing, but my phone calls are, I never, look, I can be, all my last devices I have up are able to be, my calls are and able to be, and anything you want me to prove, I can prove it. I have documentation. I know you guys.
Let me ask you, what happened to your list? Why are you
oh shit, I'm sorry, that camera just, when I hit it, it's a motion sensor. Let me turn off the frame. So I do have documentation that's available on request of the issues, and well, Javier, I gave him here. Well, I want these to go to law enforcement anyway, so here. Javier saw a serious wound to my eye. It required medical attention, and it was because all my windows have been modified to pop out of place while in a fully locked position. I encouraged him to contact the apartment maintenance manager staff and ask him, because they confirmed. I had a video.
Can I just say, I don't know that that would necessarily be an appropriate role for me to do. I just wanted to say that, is that, you know, again, my goal here is to get you connected to services. It sounds like you've already done quite a bit of the legwork, so that's good for me.
I've done no work. I mean, other than I researched it.
Right, and unfortunately, you know, and I'm happy to make a RISE referral to that program. I don't think people should tell you anything without doing research. I don't think you should have been told someone will be out 10 days. I don't think that you should have been told that all, you know, referrals will be accepted.
Yeah, that's the law enforcement.
Did you receive an eviction notice?
No, the situation is the apartment complex knows I'm in crisis, and so,
also, there's a moratorium on evictions right now.
Okay, but I don't qualify for it because my dad is on the lease, and because of his income, I don't qualify for it. Did Javier convey my financial situation to you? I've been packed for months trying to move, but because my technology is interfered with and I've been isolated, and just to be clear, did you read the email follow-up my dad sent a week or so ago about abuse, isolation, and neglect?
So again, I'm going to ask you, actually,
No, I was just going to ask, I don't know how these, you know, the emails you had sent was sent to Javier, or were they out?
It was sent to Javier, and Sarah, I'm sorry, you said you had reviewed.
Yeah, no, I have seen them.
Okay, so
Probably not a seen them, but I've seen them.
would you articulate what you noted for my dad's concerns in the email you wrote?
You know what, honestly, there were about 12 emails that were in part of the same thing. So the ultimate, you know, goal, again, for us being here is that you're reaching out asking for services, so we need to figure out
what is
inappropriate.
I'm reaching out for you to investigate isolation, abuse, and neglect, and to intervene, and I'm reserving
Our intervention in this situation is to report to law enforcement. It's the only way that we're going to do. Cannot do an investigation on our own.
No, but you could. Well, first of all, I mean, I don't know of any mental health care professionals that are not trained to listen to people very well. But in either case, yes, so that is my desire, as law enforcement won't entertain my concerns, and has illegally obstructed me. Here's where part of the same crime put me on a suicide hold in April of last year. You guys may have this photo. This is a photo of I admitted myself after being deprived of food and medical care, and transportation, etc., for about 5 days straight, and my family and therapist at the time, because I was completely isolated, Here's the notes for this physician report that goes with the window stuff. And I had called first thing I did when it started is first I go and they knocked all my communication out. They destroyed all of my computer equipment on March 6th. And I'm sorry, once again, I was hoping to explain the context of what you're saying, but please, for law enforcement, this is the messages that are in tangent with the report or follow-up conversation I had with him. You still don't have the background or context for it, but I would like to articulate it.
Edward, I want to bring it back to the present, right now.
Right now I have a death threat, and I'm getting nauseous. Yes, sir. But yes, right now.
Do you have food and water?
I have food and water.
How do you get that?
Normally Instacart food and water delivery. Yeah.
Okay.
At the time I was surprised. I did not have any internet access on anything, and I had my license had expired, or the Florida license, and I couldn't. So I do have food and water, and I do have medication, and I do have a good psychiatrist I've been working with.
And how are you getting your medication?
I will now. I have my license. I drive to pick them up.
And you drive to medical appointments and you go to those?
Well, right now my doctor, I was going in twice a week for a breakthrough FDA treatment for treatment-resistant depression, but my insurance discontinued it, and so
you have Medicom now, right?
No, I have Blue Shield. Not my
You said Gold Coast.
No, man, Blue Shield. My insurance basically obstructed that. It was expensive because I had to go spend 2 hours twice a week at the office. For the record, I just wanted you guys to view this, if you would. Just the top part. I am, like I said, I have concerns about retaliation on the part of the county. This is a fair housing report against, apparently Fair Housing does law enforcement and many other agencies like yours for discrimination, bias, in the delivery of government services against people with disabilities. You are free to take look at my current diagnosis if either of you want to see my current diagnosis.
Well, the reason that we would want to know that, honestly, just comes down to that live referral, to that behavioral health referral. As far as County says, that's where you really want to show the autism spectrum as...
That process I've taken the lead on because I know no one else is going to be.
Do you currently need us to...
I was hoping for any kind of protective services. Right now, being isolated, have a problem not having, I doubt this is I have 5150, I signed a prohibition against firearms. I never have wanted a gun. The RISE program, the way the way it was explained to me was it would not be something I would benefit from. I had him explain the program to me the day he texted me about it because the county accidentally transferred me. Oh, by the way, when I called the county executive office and told her about the sheriff and I accommodating my ADA request after calling the number on their county ADA manual, that Rebecca Hillcrest does not work for the sheriff's office. I have no idea who I'm talking to, and if you guys would leave me business cards, please, that would I'd appreciate it. I have no idea who, when I call somebody, I have no idea if it's going to the party, my calls can be transferred anywhere I want. Like, when I go to log into online banking normally, this is, it should look like, I'm sure you guys use online banking, it should look like, I have Wells Fargo, Bank of America. This one, for example, is my Wells Fargo. But with the way I'm hacked, it's intercepted, and this is what I see when I go into my account is plain text. So I'm being restricted, and obviously I can't access telemed, teletherapy, etc. On these devices either. I know part of what you do is try to prevent homelessness and crisis and protect victims of crimes. I also, once again, feel like I ought to be able to articulate the long hours, to give the short form of the long hours of the context of those messages for you. Because they start with video calls, and all those messages are following up on our video calls.
So, I'll tell you what we can do. I'm going to tell you what we can do. I can make a referral price, and I can make a cost for the law enforcement. That's pretty much the extent of what we can accomplish.
And may I articulate the abuse, isolation, neglect? Once again, those photos were meant to be given in context. I can tell you're eager to get out of here. Why? I mean, those photos don't alarm you, particularly the Facebook Messenger ones?
Especially alarming. Photos of anybody with an injury is alarming. I mean,
I'm sorry?
I said photos of anybody with an injury is very alarming.
No, the Facebook messaging.
The Facebook messaging.
If you look in there,
I'm going to be honest with you, I don't use social media, so I need to really reduce to figure out the shame, because I don't use social media at all.
That's why I think it would be real easy if I were allowed to articulate the background complex. I'm sorry, I can't articulate what's happened with the abuse, isolation, neglect.
I think that we've been letting you articulate that.
I've been saying from the beginning, and I wanted to, before I handed you the photos, articulate the calls that led to that conversation.
Okay.
And I will give you the short form. The reason I was reaching out to Brian Zerka is it was clear I was not going to get proper access to any government services. The sheriffs had declined to investigate. Javier didn't do anything he had promised, or delivered anything in the service plan.
Remember, we're not going to go back to Javier.
Okay. So I'm not file. This isn't about Javier. This is explaining why I was reaching out to that criminal. So I can only contact the private contractors. Oh, if you want motive, this is the motive for the original attack. I was a whistleblower on Kroger, the fourth largest employer in the United States. That's what led to the cyber attack. 3 days after it, I had dumped those on a Facebook. I dumped those publicly right before contacting Brian as kind of a desperate move of it doesn't look too good for me. And I had written a whole thing about it. But I was a contract auditor for a company that worked or that was one of Kroger's major suppliers. I got thrown in put the smart guy on thing. Oh, and by the way, here's one of my former rheumatologist cards. I do see them a autoimmune disorder too, mainly activated by stress. But I was a contract auditor. That was one thing I was to delete. I was to delete all my correspondence with all protective services, with the sheriff, delete the videos I posted about the sheriff. So I
was the reason given to you? That's what's kind of a little confusing. Who told you that you had to take all of these things down? Where did that come from?
Take all these things. Where it came from is since March 6th of 2019, when all of my devices got hacked and disabled and destroyed at once. And I tried buying several new ones. And I called the sheriff out here who documented a cyber attack, and it gave me a bunch of lies of why they couldn't help. And it involved the kind of attack, the cyber attack they used, the WPA attack, involves having hardware in my immediate vicinity. So the sheriff came out and March 14th, and I had recommended you look at that videotape if there was questions about whether or not this happened. The sheriff, by the way, I do have a copy. My complaints against both, they won't provide me an original copy of my complaint, which the Attorney General was very surprised by, California Attorney General. But, and the sheriff tells me that they don't have jurisdiction over the sheriff's department on what I told him was a recorder line with an autistic person. Then I knew I had to get hold of the FBI because I knew this was serious stuff. At the time I was pretty good at computers. I've had to learn this hacking stuff for almost 2 years now to save my life. So the sheriff denied me service. I bought a burner, disposable cell phone, and walked 2 blocks away, called the FBI. I had all my equipment. The sheriff's body camera shows the attack happening, and they leave saying they lie about why they can't help.
So I'm going to just...
And then I call Adult Protective.
Because we've talked about it and you've acknowledged it, but we do not control what law enforcement...
No, I know, but this is... I'm giving you the short of the events that led to why I contacted a criminal for help. This criminal reached out to me on my last working device 3 days after they had successfully knocked out every other device. I had not spoken with him since I left Florida. I had met with his dad in Florida briefly after him and some other really hardcore criminals had kind of adopted me when I was suffering from major depression, doing ECT and stuff, and they were very nice to me and they financially exploited me. But I did, and it got really out of hand, and so I did meet with Brian's dad, and his dad does have the connections I would need to resolve this.
All right, let me ask you a question. What's going right for you right now? What's going right?
What's going right is that I'm still advocating for myself, despite getting different stories from virtually every party I contact every time, that I'm still healthy enough to articulate and care for myself at this time. I do worry about that ability that I just received, and I violated, obviously, to delete everything, and instead pulled a fast one and reported the text part and possibly more to my parents because I thought that they weren't really going to let me survive. And so I immediately said I stopped deleting. I told him I was going to keep deleting and wait for his dad. And it may have been his dad, or it may have been, it probably was. It could have been one of his dad's buddies. His dad is a big shot for the retired Department of Defense big shot. I have verified that independently. And I also called the Law Protective Services, and I will tell you that you guys are the one agency that actually has done me any real good, because when Gin When she came out, at the time I had nothing but a poorly working, hard line, and that would drop out and everything. But when she came, I was able to access my main accounts and get my, because everything was digital. Everything I was digital. I never planned on everything going.
That's probably not something you should help you with, though, I guess.
Well, she just had me try to get in, and I got uncomfortable because it was making me connect to Wi-Fi, and I noted that I don't have Wi-Fi here anymore. I have some plugs in the wall, look, but it connected to the Wi-Fi documents and the shares attack right before, a couple weeks before then, and so it connected to theirs. And it ended up rooting my phone, but it did give me access. It did give me a low level of temporary access to phone and internet.
So I'm going to bring you back around today.
And so this situation has continued. After Adult Protective Service and law enforcement and the FBI, who referred me to their online form, I can show you. I cannot submit the FBI online form if you'd like, but because I'm fed a CDN, and so I was hospitalized, because of lack of food and water after the sheriff's, and Adult Protective offered limited services. But at the time, I didn't know my rights. I didn't have internet, and I hadn't investigated. I hope to have never have investigated this stuff. And so today, I once again, this time, having reviewed the laws, advocate for myself as positive with the sheriff's office and letting them know it was not okay the way the officers responded to the initial call. And then when the Captain Bouchot, the public information officer, who I happened to take their complaint, got pretty nasty and once again denied my legal rights, and also lied about not having the technology to investigate this stuff, because the one thing the district attorney did say, which I learned after the call, was the district attorney, Wavier, had asked me, saying, I know nothing about technology. I said, because I didn't know who would look into this. And the sheriff's department kept telling me they don't have the resources for any kind of cybercrime.
And they may or may not.
The district attorney, special investigator, it's on their webpage since, I think, 2020 or 2000. They have one of the nation's premier state, local law cybercrime divisions, because they share with Los Angeles. And he was pretty proud on the call. And so and I asked to speak to an investigator, and they said, well, the way that has to work is the sheriff has to refer you. And I said, I know that is the procedure, and that's why I'm in this mess.
I guess that can be frustrating, because we talk to law enforcement all the time, and I talked about this with you too. But what I was saying is that there's a difference of level, and the only thing I can say due to working with law enforcement. For me, if I'm 51% or even less than that concerned there's an effective issue, I'm going to go ahead and send it to law enforcement. Law enforcement will then send it to the local police jurisdiction if they feel at that point it should need further investigation or go to the detective.
Law enforcement will send it to a police.
We send it to law enforcement.
Right.
Law enforcement, their local agency is going to determine whether or not and how they want to investigate.
Which local agency do you report to?
Having a deputy sheriff come to your home to talk to you, that would be a pretty normal thing. After local law enforcement determines what they want to do, they will, if they feel that it merits further investigation, they'll assign it to a detective. Until that happens, you're right. The district attorney's office is not going to get involved. That's the step. And because, and that's it is preponderance of truth, right? It's preponderance of belief. What we see as a crime that falls under our code, right? Like our fear, it does not mean that the detective or the district attorney's office, because they have a different level of evidence and truth.
No, I get the beyond the No, I get you have a very low threshold, and they ultimately have a very high threshold. my major concern with law enforcement is they deny an investigation. They clearly have a grudge against me. I have a big email exchange, once again available on request with them. And then if you can't resolve it with them, you're supposed to call the district attorney, local first, which I did, while holding the form for the state attorney, attorney general, saying, confirming I had, and also asking me to submit a written or a copy of my original complaint. They refused to give it to me. He told me keep going after.
Right, so aside from making a report to local law enforcement and the district attorney's office, because we do both. Whenever we make a report to law enforcement, it also goes to the district attorney's office. So just know that we'll go to two different places. But again, we cannot influence at all the outcome or even the start of an investigation.
No.
Simply send a report.
We will assist them if they call Sarah and
Right, if
say,
they call a little more information, I'm going to obviously speak with them on their behalf. And that happened earlier today, where I sent over an inconclusive, referral. At that moment, it was inconclusive, and I was called back by a deputy in 15 minutes. So sometimes they respond right away, and sometimes they don't, and unfortunately, we can't influence that.
Well, but you can articulate your observations regarding the severity or significance of the activity occurring, and also make them aware that even though it's under the California Welfare and Institution Codes, that due to my disabilities and status, I am entitled to protection from abuse, isolation, and neglect as defined per your policy manual and in the California Welfare and Institution.
I'm going to ask you that. What can I do for you?
And so, yes, okay, so the crime, so I tried every county official, the corporations involved to try to resolve this. Right now, they use a strategy called persistent engagement. This involves constantly doing terrible history. And so, right now, I had given up, basically I just increased the liability on the county. Just to deter the bad guys and nothing else.
Well, I just want to direct you so that part of what's really important is that in order to provide or in order to determine that something is neglectful, whether that's isolation or even physical abuse, part of the issue is that the perpetrator, and this is very important, the perpetrator, whoever they are, needs to have an understanding that the victim is either a dependent adult or over.
They do, absolutely does.
That's an extremely important part because it's not necessarily how we see ourselves, it's the others. So they need to understand this is the so in order for law enforcement to really pursue an even further investigation, the perpetrator has to have that knowledge, okay? The knowledge is that you are an independent adult. That is very difficult to argue. That's why I think getting into psychology is important.
Well, I'll be homeless, and that's a death sentence to me before their 128-day enrollment.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to lie about this. Homelessness is not in itself a reason for an EPS.
I agree. You are charged with there are measures you can take to help prevent it if you elect to. But okay, so finishing so that's where the conversation begins. Why I reached out to this criminal who I know is a downstream contractor of the people isolating, abusing, and neglecting me. Actually, in the text thread, I keep mentioning my autism as part of the conversation that
So this is where it's so tricky, and it's such a fine line, and I promise you, and it's frustrating, and it frustrates us all the time. Not only does the perpetrator have to have direct knowledge and belief, there also has to be a motive. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you an example that's not similar to you, but in fact, okay? So there was a client, I talked about the television deprivation. So we had a client, a history with a client who died. The reason she died was natural causes. What had happened is she had fallen in her bathroom. Her son, who lives with her, attempted to get her up. She said, no, I'm fine leaving her. Well, she stayed there for 6 days, okay? And finally, she became non-responsive, and she died. That particular perpetrator did not have the intent to neglect his mother to the point of death. And they ruled that the death was accidental and that it was a forward of natural causes. So, and the reason for that, because obviously that's something...
I know exactly the legal, I know exactly the codes.
That's what it came down to was, are you aware that your lack of or behavior are going to be negatively impact even leading to death? And if you don't have that motive or that lack of understanding, well,
wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I was just giving you an example so that you understand.
I understand. I understand legal and concepts and policy concepts. I've read them thoroughly. I know exactly what you're articulating. But this was a formal death threat, and because I did not comply with the instructions there, the death threat is now back in effect. I reached out to Brian as a desperate measure, asking for his dad to intervene between me and their predominantly private security contractors. I know Brian was, like I said, he showed up, he was assisting them, and then when he got on the phone with me, or Facebook call with me, he said, first he texted me, now the texts that are not the black and blue, the other texts, they start with, I deleted our previous text thread, I deleted everything, I deleted over 200, except, but he gets on the phone with me announcing he has a lot to tell me after talking with his dad. His dad had the correct clearance in the intelligence community I needed, and his dad has influence in this community.
Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I'm sorry. Am I not able to finish because it's like 5-10 minutes, you want to sort of stop? Because I was explaining the context of those calls. We're right up to the call now. Okay. And so I'd like to finish that, if that's okay.
Good.
Thank you. Brian announces, texts me, we have a lot to talk about. He gets on the phone with me and said, Ed, he goes, he genuinely seemed, he's not a very sharp character. But his dad accommodates him, but he is a few buckles short of a full straight jacket, you know? But nonetheless, his dad is someone, and I met with his dad in Florida. He says, Ed, he goes, you are classified as a level 1 national security threat. He was very excited when he couldn't believe it that I made it that high. And he said, they are using and he was trying to pronounce it like a fizz, I said, they're using a FISA warrant, Brian. He goes, yeah, they're using a FISA warrant. Because it's very obvious my mail, everything gets intercepted. See a part of complex and tell you, Windows modified. I have cameras showing that very elaborate contraption on my roof. I talked to the apartment manager, who's available for interview. They do not allow satellites or anything else up there. That is there with a FISA warrant at 702. But he says, Ed, he goes, Ed, man, this is serious, man. I said, yeah, no shit, man. I said, I'm at the end of my time. I can't make it. My dad needs me to downsize, and I can't do anything other than try to keep my basic affairs. And he said, dude, bro, well, and I also mentioned, I said, at this point, they're just, when they do their regular break-ins, they are just, at this point, they're just ransacking stuff, cutting open unopened packages. Everything gets wired, is the way everything gets destroyed. And he said, he made me a deal, but when I pointed out, yeah, they're just ransacking. They slashed in the email my dad sent. They slashed my dashboard in an area where people who know computers know that's a death threat. They were getting to the cam, the back computer on a car with self-driving features. But he said, yeah, dude, they were sending you a threat. I said, yeah, no kidding, dude. That's nothing about this is covert. This is all, I've been since March 6th, 2019, complaining about attacks. There's no covert element. They'd like me to know that they're around here. They don't have to hang those two wires as part of their thing. Once you have, that one's a high definition, but the apartment knows about it, and they didn't play games. They were, the maintenance manager, Andre, I told him, I said, look, guys, the apartment managers acted in good faith. They're one of two parties. I said, but, maybe you can use this to take this to the... He said, you're a level 1 threat. Now, if you delete everything, the reason I'm a level 1 threat is because of I have over 200 videos of this crime occurring. I have no criminal record. But I am on record in 2013 as a government corruption activist. And I was a potential Kroger whistleblower at the time of the attack, and then I accidentally, it's called, the technical term, unmasked the attackers about 5 months in. They started backing off for a while, but then I unmasked them. I saw a list of their servers, and from then on out, they're in for the kill. And so Brian says, yeah, take all those. All those are for you. Brian says you can see in the messages where he's saying, my dad this, keep deleting, but he makes me a deal, which I accept, which I was willing to honor. Delete everything. Everything is First Amendment protected material. It was all 200 around about 200 public YouTube videos, represent only a small part of what I have. So the apartment complex, to verify it, they modified all my windows, all 3 of my windows, including a heavy-duty hurricane window, by making custom decisions. So when they're fully locked and there's a burglar bar in place, you can simply gently lift it up and it comes right out. Okay. Well, I told the apartment complex I would take the burden of securing it as a so I basically, what I use is tamper devices. I can't stop them. I gave you pictures of the drilled lock in there. That's very fancy craftsman work. They cut the metal. That was a security device they cut through. They've destroyed pretty much everything I own. Financial abuse and exploitation. But Brian said, hey, that makes me a deal. And he says the deal is that I can be moved to a 1-year high-level surveillance list in which I would be tested periodically. Like people may pretend to be journalists and say, hey, I hear you have information for this or that. So they can test me all they want. I'm happy to put this behind me, and so is my family. And then he says for 5 years, and this is stuff I haven't researched, but I believe it, if you check that as true, you'll be on the FBI's watch list. And I said, I don't care about being on a watch list. I care about being attacked.
Well, I understand that, but I can see that this is really upsetting to you, but again, our rules are very, very limited. We don't have contact with the FBI. We don't, those are not things that we have.
No, I know exactly.
I guess the final thing is, what can I do for you?
Help articulate my crime to law enforcement.
And that's what I said.
And so I'm finished. I'm almost finished with the short version for someone like me that's very verbose. I'm almost finished with the short version of the context of those minutes. Almost there. So Brian makes me that deal, which I accept. I will delete and wipe everything. I stay up late into the night listening to the Dalai Lama speak. I'm primarily a philosophical Buddhist. And then when I finally get hold of him 2 days later, in the messages, I'm asking to speak with an FBI handler rather than him. Because but I started taking hedging because I knew the fact that he was calling me and not his dad. His dad came and met with me at my house in Florida. But when I came out here, 2016 was a very scary time, the last 2 months before I relocated out here. And you can see he keeps referring to his dad. I cannot prove he was talking to his dad it may well have been one of the contractors. Brian did tell me how his dad, private defense contractors are a big booming new business, and his dad can allocate contracts, and what he does is have the certified contractors can hire wherever they want, which often will be criminals. They tried to get me to, they offered to sell me drugs, they tried to get me to buy marijuana and ship it to Florida. This is over a year ago, and all that stuff. I tried to report to the DAA, so my parents decided I'd be willing to do informed by, and I'm not interested in criminal activity. But his dad, Brian had that deal. Okay, at first, also, I had to negotiate with him to keep my Facebook account. He wanted me to delete all my social media accounts. I said, how about I just delete the Kroger posts? Do you have some short screenshots of some of the emails just proving those are the motive, original motive evil? I was a whistleblower on a big corporation. I can establish anything law enforcement might want beyond any reasonable doubt. I have so much evidence, forensics and stuff. However, my online stuff, I can't upload anything. I might be able to email. They just revenge hacked my main phone. I can show you that it will not boot after I enter the passcode. He is telling me that the death threat was when I was talking about, them trashing my house and the car stuff, he goes, bro, you know these guys are going to you. I go, oh, I know they're going to kill me. And he goes, yeah. And I said, they don't even have to actually physically assassinate me. All they have to do is obstruct me from all government services and leave me without any resources. I will be almost without cell phone, hacked, their car that's been, I don't know, it's scary. That, like you said, I've learned hacking, that would modify a car to where it could self-drive off a cliff very easily. I can explain the technical details to you, not very people, unless you want. But he confirmed that the district attorney and the sheriff kept denying they had any kind of technology or computer crime. District attorney has a phenomenal one that could very easily make quick work of this. But these guys don't care because there is a larger base station on my roof. So he said, yeah, they're going to kill you. I said, yeah, all it takes. So in there, he even says, look, now that we have the deal and you're wiping everything, you don't have to worry about taking yourself out. So I said, Brian, basically the choice is, what I told him was, you can either, I took the risk of sending those and everything, risking false imprisonment and show my desire to live, just to be clear, because it does talk about me being extorted to suicide by being cut off from all resources and completely isolated and being unable to care for my most basic needs. Because they're so out of control. I mean, my budget goes to replacing stuff they destroy. The death threat is implicit in there. He goes, you don't have to worry about, in those messages, he said, you don't have to worry about taking yourself out anymore because we have this deal where you're going to destroy everything. Very unusual request for an honest law enforcement investigation. We need you to destroy all evidence, delete every account. You can see in there, wipe everything, delete everything, get rid of everything. I started doing it. And then I realized when I started asking them questions, wait a minute, there's actually no plan where I get to make it here. And then it ends with a discussion that, I confront him about that. He goes, let me get with my dad. And I play, these guys use deception as part of their trading, false flag. I won't get into the technical terms. But I said, just so you make your life easier, the ones that are in blue and black, the Facebook messages, are like mainly the originals, so those would be what we want to read first. And then, but also there is me texting. So what happens is I only turn on that backup phone, which is the one only phone I have is my emergency backup phone. So I would only turn that on for Facebook Messenger, so he would text me on my cell that just got hacked. And but he said I pretended like I even stayed there because I realized they got me good by having me delete their evidence of their crime. And I say, hey, look, I don't want, I'm just gonna, I'm supposed to be waiting for his dad, but I can tell by the way he's acting. All of a sudden he starts getting real tough with me on the second call about, no, you dug your hole in deep, and you gotta do what you gotta do,
So again, how can we help you? Literally, what is it that you need from me?
And so the way it finalized was in those text messages, the final content were in the last 90 seconds, home stretch, right? The way it finalized was that I end up getting worried because he's not calling his dad to see if make the deal work for me, where I'm extorted under threat of death to delete everything. But if I don't, they said they were going to kill me, and I didn't. And so the threat stands, and I've been getting more and more abuse, which I know you don't have time to hear about. But instead of waiting for his dad, I act real slick, and I hop onto Facebook rapidly. First of all, I secretly recorded the messages on an offline, no Wi-Fi video camera, and then on both phones. And I have stuff I'm not disclosing that is stuff that would explain this, etc. And so I end up sending it to my parents at 8 o'clock p.m. Because I thought much better to screenshot it real quick. I turn off data, everything on the phone, take up the screenshot of Brian's text messages, flip the thing on, and I shoot them all off to my parents, and then my little sister, or my parents at that time. And I said, please read them, they're going to get deleted. And they read them and they secured them. They said, this is my little sister. And then you'll see in the white and blue text, which was my name cell, that I say, here's the new deal. You just extorted me under threat of death. And I said, you can tell them to back off, or I will pursue. I say in there, I am a practitioner of nonviolence. I live peacefully. I've never been arrested once, never even once arrested in my life. I said, but I will pursue every remedy I have, including recourse against your agency when I don't see good faith, or discharge of duties as I read it in on the laws and official manuals. But I will continue to pursue until they finish the job every peaceful recourse I have and stand up for my rights, and that's what's positive. Is that I stood up to those thugs that have, like I said, you want to see a short video that shows you the setup on the roof there. It's quite a setup. The maintenance guy confirmed they don't allow satellites or anything, and I have close-up photos of it where it is. I remember I pointed to the middle one. It is. And by the way, law enforcement wants to investigate. Ask maintenance. Maintenance knows. Maintenance, I do believe.
Well, my plan, I'm just looking at my plan. Is that just going to go to the sheriff station? That's just what I'm going to do with it.
That'd be awesome.
I think that's more effective than me sending over a remote.
I love it.
So I will carry these into the sheriff's department.
I love it.
I think that might be the best thing we can do for you at this point. If you're already making progress on the Tri-County Regional Center, you're making progress. If you want the referral for guys to be either else,
when you say, so what will the Rise program do for me?
So Brian,
Don't worry about that. So.
Yeah. So basically the purpose of RISE is to engage with people who either may not be able to receive services on their own or who just need that extra support. So they will come to your home. They will come to your home, they will provide services here. Now, again, I'm going to say behavioral health does have access to housing. We do not. Behavioral health. And they do have communities. And I'm not talking about a board meeting, right? I'm not talking about that. No, I'm talking about not a RISE. I'm going to be on RISE.
Well, I have a great contact, and may I recommend if you want to contact behavioral, hey, right here, come here, real quick, just a moment. Andre, can I have you up here for just a second? These are my adult protective social workers. Just 1 second, sir. 1 second, I'm your time.
Just information on that, to the public.
Perfect. I was telling them the apartment complex is acting in good faith. I've articulated a little bit what I articulated to you. I just have 2 questions. I know if they want to follow up with you, they're government employees, they may. So I just want to confirm 2 things with you. I'm sorry, this is Andre, you're the head of maintenance here? Alexander, sorry buddy. Do you recall me showing modifications to my window? And you were able to confirm that they were not alterations your company would have made, right? The one at the time you did. And I sent Michelle a video of how they opened while fully locked. Do you recall this?
I never saw the video, but I remember your picture again.
And you did acknowledge that the hardware modifications were not done by your staff, right?
We don't want to.
Right. So it was to pop out when they're closed. And then I did make you aware of a series of devices on my roof here. You do not allow satellites of any sort, right? So like a beam with a satellite device would not be permitted under apartment policy. I know the apartment is looking into it, but this would be a good gentleman if you guys wanted to follow up with, or Michelle, the manager. Thank you. I think that's all I need. But there should not be. Do you have any comment on what might be up there?
No idea.
All right. I feel you. I like you guys. Thank you.
So we're going to be going so that I can head over to the sheriff's department. I think it's just better if I get rid of them.
Sure. And can I will in less than 2 minutes. I want just a few other things to make it to the sheriff, please. I have the actual hardware. This is spy equipment that was put into my apartment. I know it may not mean much to you guys, but
We learn every day.
I learn too much every day. Also, some other these guys like to make their presence known. Here you can see this is a third-party license. It says NSA as a third-party licensor. That's just them messing with me. It doesn't mean the NSA, but they put that in there because they're part of the psychological abuse. And then I also, in that pile, I found in my account a series of US Gov Cloud, API.net for my Google server. I'm just going to give that. I know that won't make sense to you, but I did check on that. That is used by U.S. contractors. And then I found a series of suspicious, unrecognized. Brian Stop this is a fake account that was in my Gmail account. Brian is the name of and I also found Brian, the guy who made the threat, his malware in my computer, his account. Here's my electronic communications getting interfered with, 1,400 private servers my phone's communicating with, Wi-Fi jamming.
Before we go, I want you to understand what our timelines are.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not expecting you guys to understand any of this. I just want to answer this.
You don't understand. So, from the day of meeting, I have 21 days to write up my assessment, so that means it might not be done tomorrow. The service plans are every 30 days. That's kind of our...
I understand all of these perfectly.
Okay. And you know that our records can only be subpoenaed by the judge.
I understand all of that perfectly. This is also found on my account, paid direct link to gov.com. I did verify these were my Google accounts. So then they have account identifiers. I do not have jurisdiction. These are just for law enforcement. I'm not expecting you guys to make any sense of those.
I think you should take them forward long.
Well, the problem is law enforcement has denied to investigate, lying that they didn't have the ability to identify any kind of cyber abuse or cyber crime, which is a lie. When I called my voicemail, I got a different number that was on my voicemail. I guess I'll say that there's no contact.
Yeah, CB4.
No. I'm just requesting, because I don't think they're going to respond, I'm just requesting that they get these, and they don't have to know the context, they don't have to look at them, but I do want them to have these.
Well, what I can tell you is that I can take them there. I cannot guarantee.
That's all I have.
I cannot guarantee that they will be so.
I think that's a win-win for all three of us, because it shifts the burden from you guys over to... That's what I'm saying. This stuff you guys already have to look at. Really, I shouldn't be investigating this stuff. Law enforcement should, and ideally, law enforcement, I have to contact you guys because once again, law enforcement has flat out, and again, when I call, I don't know who I'm really calling, so that's kind of challenging. That'll do. Just take those photos.
And I told the community that because everything we do is confidential and so is law enforcement, a lot of what they do, they might not be able to confirm it. I'm telling you, that is something that they may not be able to confirm to you.
Also, can I get cards? Because that does make me nervous that, you understand when I call, I really don't know who's coming out. And sir, I see you have your name badge displayed. Do you mind if I compare it? Like I said, it's just for my sake with this Scott Emmerich Protective Services. Okay, and Human Services, you do have your county badge for a required. Sarah, do you mind if I see your badge and share? And Sarah, you are a licensed social worker?
No, I'm not sure you.
So you did not pursue licensure?
No.
Okay. I also recommended to the supervisor at Adult Protective that they engage a cross-disciplinary team as defined by your manual. Perhaps somebody trained to work with individuals with communication disorders. I guess we could. So you're saying law enforcement. Well, wait a minute. Now, I will get a service plan. You did a reassessment.
I think that you're misunderstanding what a service plan is.
I don't think so, but go ahead.
Oh, I explained to you. That's the thing. So we have 21 days in our time sorry, it's 30 days to come with an appropriate service plan. So a service plan is typically an action that a social worker is going to take on your behalf. So a good example would be a referral to Robbie.
Or like the one I got from Javier. Okay, so you did not review the documents. I can send you the service plan if you can't get access. So I was assured by the supervisor you would get access to the email. Javier.
What I told you on the phone is that I want to come in with fresh eyes.
Okay, your fresh eyes. Yeah, you said that to me, and I'm respecting the way you prefer or feel you like to do things. I'm advocating for my rights as prescribed by law and exercising my prerogatives. And so what I'm saying is I received the service plan. It said that law enforcement, that it was cross-reported to law enforcement.
What I'm telling you is that it's possible that law enforcement cannot share that information with you.
I yield to you on that point. Javier told me on a recorded line, because I made him aware. Okay, but yes. I am noting that you are refusing an abuse investigation into Javier. I'm noting that.
Yeah, that's fine. You can go. Neither one of us said we're refusing to investigate Javier.
I'm sorry, did you say...
We're not here to discuss Javier.
You're not here to discuss Javier.
Why are you investigating?
Done with him or not.
How do you discuss?
I'm going to go to my computer when I leave here. I'm going to look up the case. I'm going to look up what Javier did or did not do. And I'm going to look at a service plan if one was done.
Yes, one was done.
And if it says he will get a cost report, I will look to see if he did or not.
And I was to be provided with referrals, including law enforcement. However, when I called them and I announced to them, like I do with almost every county official, and I do recommend you do contact the county attorney about the video recording issue. My understanding is that one of my rights has been violated, but I did not want, I wanted this stuff. I'm sorry, man, you did promise me that those could just go to law enforcement. You didn't have to look it up today. I did not feel, I felt very rushed. I did not feel that my situation was taken.
We are
No, I'm talking about with you.
A lot of time, and that's fine, and I don't have a problem with that. But I don't think
a video camera could let a third party determine that.
so again, that's something that we.
So you can't discuss Javier, but you say you are willing to look into abuse, isolation, neglect. In an email to Javier, listen, I'll make this real quick about Javier, and I will, you suggested follow up with the appropriate supervisor. Scott, are you going to would you like to run points? You met with me, I spoke with the supervisor, her name written down Friday. She was very nice.
This is Javier's supervisor.
Yeah, but Javier made a determination that the reasonable suspicion that I might be the victim of criminal activity did not even meet reasonable suspicion, and I'm not going to quote you guys from your handbook what that means.
So let me just talk about this. So, remember what I told you. We can make reports to law enforcement that we find inconclusive. We can file reports to law enforcement when, sometimes they get cases that I can't make sense of it, right? There's so many parties. We still report to law enforcement. That's what I'm telling you I'm going to do, is that I'm going to go and get this to law enforcement. I'm not really certain what else I can do for you.
Okay, so I was articulating once Javier showed up and did case management and provided a service plan upon my written demand. He had concluded without talking to my parents. Have either of you talking with my mom or dad?
I speak with my clients, but...
Okay. They had reported and there's a written statement from my parents because Javier suggested or implicitly. Javier told me he decided not to make the referrals or report to law enforcement.
And again, we know this is Javier, not Javier.
Okay, so Scott, so Javier said to me when I called him early last week, notified him the last few calls. I understand that there is an adversarial component to having a recording device present, and that if you're trying to work and get paid, that's a hindrance, right? I understand conceptually, and so the last two calls with Javier were made known at the beginning of the call that it was a recorded line. He stated to me after delivering a service plan, including Tri-County law enforcement, behavioral services, and there might he listed family, even though I made it clear my mom called and told him, don't put family, that's a problem. We can't afford to pay his full. They need me to downsize. I don't have basic access to consistent basic technology, a cell phone, where I can do a leasing process. That's really, really bad. People have been attacked. And my dad wrote you how actually he was a former employee, was going to come out and visit me for a week. And my dad wrote, I sent them a message, a screenshot of the photo. I paid for his plane ticket. This is maybe late last year, early this year. And he's now a software engineer, by the way. And he agreed. We stayed up late tonight, make all the plans, pick the flight, everything. He can come out and stay with me for a week, despite my situation, because he was a long-time employee for me. He's a first-generation Vietnamese immigrant. I sent my parents a photo of how it ended. We went to bed. He was going to fly out the next day, and I get a text from him. I wake up to a text from him. Ed, my Windows 10 computer just got hacked. These guys are high level. Time to contact the FBI. I am going dark until you get this resolved. So that is isolation, right?
So again.
But my dad put that in writing for you.
Let's try this way. When we suspect or even have inklings that a crime has occurred, we report to law enforcement. That's what I can do for you.
And you don't provide victim services.
The district attorneys have victim advocates.
So I have to, but see, the problem is, without, social service or adult protective, part of your role is for crime victims to help them deal with the physical barriers.
We don't have therapeutic interventions. Remember, we're not therapists, we're social workers. That's the first thing to remember. The second thing is that we are a program that has very specific guidelines for what we can and cannot do.
I'll review them thoroughly.
So, you know, I understand that you've read them, but what I'm going to say again is that you've already contacted RISE, so I'm hearing that that's not something that you're interested in.
No, I am interested in it.
Okay, so then I will make the referral to RISE and I will take this to law enforcement, but aside from that, I just don't know if there's anything else to be considered.
So I'm just articulating that because I don't even have access to a reliable device, I am unable to downsize. I'm having a hard time. If they decide to hack my last phone, my telemed with my psychiatrist scheduled for tomorrow. So I'm at risk of losing access to health care. These animals have deprived me of food, medical care for a year since March 6, 2019. So I understand from your manual and the California Welfare Institution codes that providing supportive services, in-home protection. What would in-home protection be that your handbook says you're able to provide? If there's potential of abuse,
report to law enforcement.
Yeah, no. But you're able.
If there's a threat of imminent harm, we call law enforcement. That's what we do.
Okay. Well, in your policy manual and in your California, I'm just going to tell you what we're right in California, and you're going to do as you do, obviously.
What I told you I was going to do.
Right.
Those two things.
Right, and I will see what results they yield, and then I will decide.
But I need for you to understand something. That again, I make the referrals to law enforcement, and I make the referrals to RISE.
You made yourself clear.
They will not confirm with me that they have received a referral. It is an infringement upon your rights to confidentiality. So if
I'd love to sign it.
If I make a referral to RISE, I will not be able to gain more information from it. That is their policy.
Well, Javier was...
We are not talking about...
Okay, I'm sorry. Javier said he's been playing, when I asked him, since my dad called him in early August, and it was on my service plan, And I did ask for, and Sarah, you did not seem familiar with the term, a form reassessment as defined in in the adult protective manual, a full case reassessment. I use that per the definition in your manual. I will let you determine whether or not that has occurred today. I will see the initial response I get from your efforts, and then I will...
That's what I want you to understand.
And I want you to understand...
Our power leaves. The minute we make that referral, we are done. We are cut off, and we don't receive information from behavioral health.
That's not what...
might be different, but you might not see the benefits because once we make those referrals, we don't know the options. We don't know how they're going to be the intake process. We don't know.
Okay.
So what I'm telling you is that I might not be able to report to you and say law enforcement is coming out or RISE is coming out because I don't know.
And what I'm telling you is that you have a very different understanding. I can simply go by what I read in your policy manual and the California Welfare Institution codes and the California Penal codes. I don't have access to any special insider information, so you have a very different understanding of your rights, obligations, and my legal rights and benefits.
Okay, well, all right, obligation is what Sarah said. We refer you to agencies. Most of those agencies are not going to get back to us. They're going to contact you.
So you do provide case management, and your definition, I know your definition, you do provide case management services.
Yes.
I know what they entail. I know exactly what they entail. Per the manual. If you may know different.
Connecting you to services that provide.
And assisting to make sure, if there's problems connecting with those.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so that contradicts that once I turn over to law enforcement, that's the end of it.
Well, it doesn't contradict, because law enforcement have their own laws. They're not going to call up Sarah and say, unless they need to...
If they need to call me, they will. But they oftentimes do not. They oftentimes they haven't enough information to make their own determination whether or not they want to pursue not something we have.
We probably don't hear about 98% of their referrals to them. I wish we would. It'd be nice to know all that
right, and it's not behavioral health because their responsibility and confidentiality is they can't tell me if they're receiving services.
Right.
So I can send them a referral, but they can't tell me.
May I make a recommendation for behavioral health?
You're making true behavioral health.
Well, no. I was just going to say I have a contact there. The associate director, Christy, has given me her personal number and encouraged me to call her anytime.
So then I called her and asked if you could be engaged with the RISE program.
Thank you. So they explained that it was a different program.
Well, and it might be different after the COVID. That's the other thing, too, is that the COVID-19 has changed, obviously, the way that so many agencies are working. We weren't even coming out from home for about...
I know. I listened to a lecture by the National Association saying, and mainly because the PPE was being given to Child Protective First and so forth. I followed all of that. And now you're back into normal business. Well, yeah. But, so I have requested a reassessment. A reassessment entails reviewing my service plan. I wrote in my email, he didn't even put his name or date on it, but he did put an estimated delivery date on it.
What you're talking about is a very specific, we use a database, right? So we use this called Panoramic. There's different sections, there's reception, there's reassessment, there's service plan.
No? The waters? No?
So it sounds to me what you're talking about is literally, that is our service plan sheet. It does not entail much. It's an issue, objective, and entity.
Right.
That's the service plan.
Right.
All 17.
And what he had provided was saying he was doing a referral and cross report to law enforcement. When I called him on a record line, he said he had made a decision not to.
Again, we're not talking about Javier. I know.
I'm sorry, I'm talking to Scott about Javier then.
I get your concern what you're saying, and I'm going to look into it. and his supervisor will be aware that he is writing one thing, and if, in fact, he didn't follow through.
Well, remember, yeah, and I have him recorded saying he didn't follow through.
Okay.
And
what do you want me to do with that?
And so, well, that is once that goes into a policy violation or a welfare institution code violation that goes into a penal code that has it's under penal code under crimes of moral decency offenses, and he made a determination that it did not meet your standard of reasonable suspicion to say I was in need that I was the victim of self-abuse, or?
I'm sorry, let me shift the focus back to me first. Would you be willing to send a consent form? And this is what I'm thinking, okay? Because like I said, if I make a referral to Rise, they won't tell me information. But it's possible, because this is specific to behavioral health, it's possible that if you do sign it, they might be willing to share with me. That's your choice, but I think that could be one step on the way to like making sure that we're
So where is the form?
So this is the Ventura County Ventura County Medical Center, Ventura County Behavioral Health Department consent to obtain or release confidential information. So, can I have a...
Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought you were asking me to sign something different.
No, I have a copy for you as well.
Is a green pen acceptable? I could take a pen. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the copy for myself. I'll just fill out this one. Yeah.
And whether Javier ended up with cross-reporting law enforcement or not, I can assure you there will be today.
Okay, that's fine, but
I'm putting off all other visits I am supposed to offer.
that I appreciate. Like I said, I'm a philosophical Buddhist. I'm trying to save my life. I'm not out for revenge, justice, or blood. If I feel like I'm not having my civil rights honored, I'm doing what every mental health association recommends, and that's advocate for my rights. And so what I'm saying about Javier is he made a determination after writing that I was to receive law enforcement, and that didn't show up. I get desperate and contact one of the criminals who Javier said wasn't possibly around, despite me showing him the window stuff and saying he could talk to that. I'm sorry, let me address Scott. Despite me, I invited him to talk with Alexander about the window alterations that almost lost my eye and required medical treatment. That's grave bodily injury. I did not discuss this because I felt the wife could get paid. It relates to that, and so in the interim, I'm sorry.
Can I see my card? You have my cell phone number, but I want to put on the back.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Javier writes a service plan with delivery date. He includes a referral to law enforcement, says cross-reporting to law enforcement. After this event with Brian, the criminal who was a downstream contractor talking for the agent, I then call him and say, hey, so I'm, following up on my referrals and everything. I said, what's going on with law enforcement specifically? And he said, Ed, I'm sorry that there was not enough there for me to make a report to law enforcement. After I was the victim of a crime, that crime occurred after, a good while after my service plan said I was getting a referral to law enforcement, and law enforcement was being made aware. Under California penal code, which I cite in one of the emails, that is punishable by up to 1 year in jail and a large fine. If grave bodily injury resulted, the window thing, who knows what's going on under there, then it's 3 years in prison. If there are aggravating circumstances, that can be compounded. And so I'm going to withhold pursuing, although you understand a death threat, and also note with law enforcement that we have a bad faith relationship, because you're going to the Ventura Sheriff? Yes, sir. I like that because they're on notice. And I have that fair housing complaint coming up.
Are you going to sign that form?
Oh, yes, ma'am. With the autism, I can't talk and do one thing at that point.
And the only reason, again, we're doing this is that I'm hoping that they'll be able to at least talk to me.
And I'm sorry, you can't do one for law enforcement? You're saying that you cannot?
This is specific?
I know. So you're not allowed to do one of these for law enforcement, you're telling me?
We don't have one of these for law enforcement.
Okay.
Law enforcement's not bound by HIPAA or confidentiality in the same way, so that's why I don't know if there's a very specific form that's within that.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that's why if law enforcement were to call Sarah to ask her anything about the case, she can't talk to her. If your mom or dad called Sarah, we can't talk to her.
Without your permission.
Without her.
Well, you do have my permission. They were the ones who called to report abuse, neglect, and isolation. And Javier never followed up with them. My mom eventually reached out when she was frustrated about lack of access. However, you may respond without me knowing, although what I did to solve it, because Javier, when he told me I wasn't getting law enforcement, said that, I don't mind saying, said that he didn't interview, returning their calls, and my mom had to catch him obtaining above Ventura County Behavioral Services, human services including adult protective services, related to release to above named individual, obtaining from the individual, entire record. That sounds good to me for the purpose of facilitation and settlement treatment. This information we tried with may I check the box for audio or visual?
This is their form, so I think that you're welcome to
I'll check it. Just so if they want any feedback, this can be revoked.
This is more just to see if they'll follow up with you.
I understand. Sure. No, I love it. I misunderstood originally what you were proposing. What's the date?
Okay.
Okay.